Welcome to the Agents Lounge podcast, where we talk all things real estate with the industry's top performers. Join us as we dive into the inspiring journeys of successful agents and uncover the secrets to their success. Whether you're a seasoned agent or just starting out, we got the tips and tricks to help you navigate the world of real estate. Brought to you by Integrity Comfort Solutions. So grab a seat and join us in the Agents Lounge.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the latest episode of the Agents Lounge, sponsored by Integrity Comfort Solutions, your local leader in HVAC, maintenance, sales, installation, and repair. As always, I'm Larry, and co-hosted by Francisco. Today on our show, we have a different little way we wanted to go. I know we usually have realtors on our show, but when we're talking about the trades and real estate, it takes a village. And so in our village today, we have Mr. Larry Mitchell of All Dry, professional restoration and cleaning services. And I totally understand a lot of people may not have this at the top of their list. So we wanted to make sure we brought in somebody who could really delve into this topic a little bit more for us. So welcome, Larry. We're glad to have you here from one Larry to another. If you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your background and what brought you to where you're at right now.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. This is great. It's my first podcast, so it's a very exciting event for me. I can check it off the list. So I grew up in Massachusetts. I went to the Air Force Academy. I was an officer in the Air Force for quite a long time. I was a pilot, flew several different airplanes throughout my career, flew in combat, and about the second half of my career, I held various staff positions, including squadron commander. As a squadron commander, I led about an organization of about 240 people, which was great. It was in Guam. We lived in Germany. My family's seen the world.
Wow.
Okay. It's really awesome. Learned a ton about leadership and, large organizations. In that, I retired in 2017 after 23 years and got a job here in San Antonio as a vice president of an aviation company. It was a really unique experience for me. It was a small business, but it was also a defense contractor. So we did some subcontracting. We're a prime vendor on a couple of contracts. Learned about joint ventures and learned all about the federal acquisition system from the provider side rather than the warfighter side. So I did that for about 5 years and got the entrepreneurial itch with my wife. We decided to go down the franchise route, and which is a perfect setup for veterans. A lot of veterans don't know what to do after their service, and franchising is a really unique opportunity because you get that template. So you don't necessarily have to be an expert right off the bat. You can kind of grow into it, which is what we did. We went with a brand called All Dry Restoration, based out of Jupiter, Florida. We bought about 5.5 territories here in San Antonio, so pretty big-sized area. And it's been awesome. We've learned a ton. We get to serve people again, and it's a great fit for my wife and I and our family.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, San Antonio is notorious for the wild weather we get from time to time, and today in San Antonio, it's 70 degrees and sunny skies, low humidity. I wish it was like that year round. Unfortunately, it's not, and that's where experts like yourself come in. So why would someone want to consider, professional restoration and cleanup as a priority in their home or their business or any kind of anything like that?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, my wife and I joke about the weather here. We thought it was going to be, like this all the time in the winter. And our first summer here, or our first winter here, it was definitely not that way. It felt more like Seattle. But
how long have you been in San Antonio?
About 6 or 7 years now.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So, but closer to 7, I think. I've been coming here my whole career, so familiar with the city back when 1604 was truly a farm road.
Yes.
20,
back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, right?
30 years ago, yeah. But yeah, as far as restoration, we're the kind of service that you don't think about until you need us. And then when you need us, you need us like yesterday.
Yes.
Right? So consider, you're a homeowner and you come home and there's an inch of water in your kitchen, or you have a rental property and it's between tenants right now. You're a property manager and your cleaning crew shows up to make ready and there's mold growing in the pantry. You need that fixed right away. So it's not a fun topic to think about when you don't need it, but that's why we're here. So we know how to work the system to make sure that we get the issue fixed, whatever the issue is, as fast as possible within the constraints that the property owner wants to operate in.
You brought up an interesting topic there. You said restoration is when you need us like yesterday. And I would say that's very similar to HVAC, because when you needed us like yesterday.
Right. Exactly.
When it gets hot, people need us like, can you come down, I'm dying.
Right.
Or when we got our first big cold blast, the same response.
Yeah.
So people come home and their washing machine or dishwasher leaked all over the place. Panic ensues. And if someone calls in that type of situation, what do you bring to the table to kind of help diffuse the situation a little bit?
Yeah, well, first of all, we triage every situation, right? So if it's a mold issue, it's probably been going on for a while, and you don't necessarily need us out there this afternoon. If it's a water issue, we will tell our existing customers, who we always have great relationships with, hey, we've got another customer who's got an emergency. We'll be back to this job, but we have to go over and extract and stabilize this environment for this other customer, and everyone understands. That's how it works. So we strive to have a response time within an hour, even as small as we are in the city. It depends on, if my tech's at home and he's got to jump in his truck and get to the other side of the town. If there's some traffic, it's going to take us a lot longer. So we always have an immediate response as possible, safely possible. And it's super important to get whatever the process is started to avoid what's called secondary damage in a property. So something gets wet, it's not going to be long before Mother Nature takes over and mold starts growing.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I maybe not the most exciting topic, but when we're talking about this, tell us a little bit about the dangers of standing water, standing moisture altogether.
Yeah, sure. So water gets everywhere. And I mean, you can literally walk into a place that just had a water loss an hour ago and everything looks normal. Smells a little weird. Right? Because things are wet that shouldn't be wet. But it's not long before everything kind of looks normal. And it's really difficult to conceptualize what's about to happen to that property. If water gets under pergo, laminate flooring, it's got to come up. There's no saving it, because eventually that material will soak up all the water. It gets between the moisture barrier and the slab. The slab is like a big sponge, so it's a rigid sponge. It's going to soak all that water in. You've got to get all that out. And there could be, depending on the size of the leak, tens of thousands of gallons of water where it shouldn't be.
And I mean, I can only imagine the people would feel you're talking about that much water or moisture underneath their kingdom, their home, their business, whatever. How does one go and identify the amount of water or moisture or damage in there? Yeah,
so we use, and hopefully every restoration company out there uses specialized tools to identify what's wet and what really should be dry, and including thermal imagery. We have thermal cameras that we come in, and that helps us spot temperature differentials. So if water is in drywall and it's evaporating, that area is going to be cooler than normal dry drywall. And so that gives us a clue as to where the water is. The real way to test, though, is with a moisture meter. And we have specialized moisture meters. You can pin materials, or we have moisture meters that can radiate waves into materials about quarter inch or half inch, and tell us what the moisture content is of that particular material, whether it's wood or drywall, or we have probes as well, can go into walls and test the insulation.
Wow. I've talked to some of our clients before, and they will say, or they will at least imply sometimes, the my home is waterproof, it's soak proof, because it's made out of X material.
Yeah.
Is there truly anything that's quote unquote waterproof?
Nothing. Not in your home. I mean, maybe your Apple Watch.
Oh, okay,
But
good point. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'll tell you that it is going to look normal for at least a little while. It's going to look normal. Even you could have a hose running in your house for overnight, and you turn that hose off and wait a day. You're going to walk in, and it's going to smell funky, but it's going to look normal. The problem is that the moisture has permeated through all those materials, and eventually, if you don't address it correctly, that's within 3 days, it's going to start growing mold. And there's no way to get out of it except to do demo in certain places and to get a dehumidifier in. A lot of times what people will do is set up fans. That doesn't do anything. It's just blowing moist air around and it's not drying anything out. You've got to get a commercial dehumidifier in. You have to get a trained, certified expert in your home so they can do the correct calculations, get the right amount of dehumidification in there, and use the correct demolition techniques. And there is demolition involved 9 times out of 10. And especially if we're talking outside walls, because that insulation got wet. It's got to come out. There's no getting around it. Sometimes if it's an inside wall, then we can just remove the baseboard and drill holes where the baseboard was, and we can dry effectively in cavities on the walls that way. But again, if it's an outside wall, usually we're talking about cutting into the drywall.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Now, when you're talking about something like that, is that something that you guys can do, or do you have to bring someone in to kind of do more of that deeper work necessary?
We are experts in demolition where it relates to water, mold, fire, damage. And so what we do, think of us as the cleaning experts, right? We come in, first of all, we help our clients understand exactly what they're dealing with. And by the way, that part of our service is completely free. We come
The
in,
demolition part.
no, the consultation.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
if, especially for realtors, if it's some sort of closing that's happening in like 3 weeks or something, we can come in for free and help the seller and the seller's agent understand exactly what's happening. We don't typically work for buyers just because we have to work for the property owners, but that piece of information is invaluable. Then you can make decisions about what to do next. Again, that's a service we provide for all of our clients, realtors or not, for no cost. The first in-home consultation is always free.
Okay. Good. Now, when we talk about something like mold, can you elaborate a little bit on the dangers? I mean, people know about mold. They hear about like, oh, mold equals bad. But when we're talking bad, like, how would you kind of help somebody understand how bad mold is?
Sure. So, a lot of people don't think it's all that dangerous because the EPA doesn't publish limits for mold, right? And the reason that they don't publish limits, I've been told and trained, is that everybody's sensitivity to mold spores is different, right? So you and I could walk into the same place, you feel sick right away, and I don't feel anything for 2 weeks, right? It's because you have your biology is such that your physiology isn't reacting to the mold spores the same way that mine do. And so there's no way to publish a standard like they have for, say, lead or asbestos. There's just no way to do it because everyone's different. So that kind of has turned into this false narrative of there's good mold and bad mold. It's just there's mold all around us all the time. It's just a matter of your individual sensitivity to that. And so the only way to know exactly what you're dealing with when it comes to mold is to get a licensed, in Texas we license mold assessors and remediators, is to get a licensed assessment company to come out and do mold testing. They typically do an air sample outside, an air sample inside, and then if there's visible mold, they can swab that. They send it off to the lab, and literally the next day you have results. And you know exactly what you're dealing with, what kind of mold, what species, and the concentrations.
Wait. Species of mold?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so we got like the T-Rex of mold, but then we have like the little chameleon of mold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Aspergillus penicillium is the most typical species of mold. And again, everyone's different. So, you know, you could, like my wife all the time, she's like, oh, my allergies are terrible today. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't have allergies. Like, I'm lucky, right? Knock on wood. But it affects her much differently than it affects me. And every species is different. Some are much more dangerous typically than others. And some you have to cladosporium, you've got to get rid of it the right way. And literally, you have to capture every mold spore that has grown in that property in order to prevent that from happening again.
Wow. Okay. Did you know about the different species of mold, Chief?
Yes, inside AC units, they love it in there.
Yeah.
Very damp
Cold,
environment.
dark place. Yep.
Dark. And we also, as an HVAC company, we help customers prevent it from growing inside their AC units by sometimes installing UV lights or good filtration system. If you have a good filter, it's going to prevent it from spreading throughout the whole house. But if you don't have any filters and your AC is turning on the whole time, I mean, that bacteria is just flowing.
You're spreading the mold spores throughout your entire house. Yeah. You've got to deal with it inside your HVAC.
Is there a truly effective way to get rid of all of that if it's in?
Yes.
Where it's like, I don't got like one species third cousin from its mother's side still lingering inside.
Well, I mean, there's mold everywhere.
Yeah.
Right now, today, there's mold inside and outside. It's a question of, is it a normal level or not? Is it the level that humans are normally exposed to? And if there's not, and again, everyone has different exposure symptoms, and some people have higher risk of like pulmonary patients have higher risks. Those with suppressed immune systems, they've got to maintain much cleaner environments. The UV lights inside the HVAC systems is an outstanding way to control not only mold but other pathogens that can get into your system. The HEPA filters, they work. Like they're tested and they work. You got to make sure you do your research.
That's like a hospital type air filter.
Yeah, and airplanes have it. In fact, during COVID, airplane cabin, once it got airborne, was one of the safest environments out there because it's a combination of outside air and HEPA grade filtration that's being recirculated.
You brought up a good topic because a lot of people tend to think being in an airplane, it'd be confined space, you're just breathing in all sorts of junk, but it's really quite sanitary.
It is. Once the engines on the airplane are running, and you're not just running off the APU in the back of the tail, and that air handling system is in full gear, it is one of the safest environments for your lungs that you can find.
Larry, I have a question for you.
Yeah. Yes.
For those homeowners or businesses, what are some things that they can do to either prevent bacterial growth from growing in their home? And if they're not unsure, what are some of the ways you can help them?
Yeah, sure. One of the simplest things you can do is go on Amazon, get a home hygrometer, temperature, humidity meter. You can get a wireless one that you put in 3 different spots in your house. If you have a higher end HVAC system, you can actually set the humidity levels in the home. You want the humidity level somewhere around 40 to 45%, which is typical. For the purposes of mold, if you get to 60%, you're in mold danger territory. 60 to 70%. If I walk into a place that's got a water loss and it's a normal contained environment, we've seen humidity levels as high as 80, 90%. And I mean, you're talking structural damage at that point, not only mold growth, but structural damage. So I would say the simplest thing and the cheapest thing that someone can do, and especially for realtors that are dealing with vacant properties, is to have a hygrometer system in the home to make sure that the humidity levels are maintained at a normal amount.
You brought up another interesting point because I would imagine a lot of the clientele you have are reactive. Something happened and but we want to try to think maybe proactive. And that's something we sell on the HVAC side is maintain your units, change your filters, have us come out and service, and I would think in almost any kind of service industry, there's proactive and reactive things that someone could do. And so you're talking with the hygrometer.
Yeah.
And that would be something that's very proactive, and it should be at the same level, I'm assuming, as changing an air filter.
If you want to keep me out of your home, bring you guys in on a regular maintenance plan. Mm-hmm. That's tip number one. Tip number two, have a plumber that you trust come and give you a risk evaluation, or we could come in and do a risk evaluation. We see what the typical water losses are. Toilets, wax rings fail all the time. People don't realize those wax rings are really only good for about 10 years. So if you buy a home and you're moving into that home and you're changing the toilet seats, it's simple enough. It's almost a DIY project. Change out the wax ring. You're good for another 10 years.
I'm not dealing with any toilets.
Yeah. Well,
not yet, sir. Not yet.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Yes.
That's how we do HVAC.
Yeah.
This NPR broadcast.
But really, in Texas we have very hard water, so having a water softener is huge. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've been into a home that the valves have failed. It was a slow leak. They didn't know about it. And now a lot of insurance companies won't cover seepage unless you have a seepage endorsement on your policy. So,
there's all sorts of endorsements.
Yeah. And so you've got to do that preventative maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
The HVAC system is key. Plumbing, flushing your water heater, making sure that you have a plumber in your home once every year or two just to evaluate everything, making sure your water softener is operating properly and you're avoiding buildups that are really super tough on not only valves, but copper pipes.
Wow.
What about issues with sealing the home or infiltration from the outside?
Yeah. So your HVAC's got to be working properly. Otherwise, you're going to get condensation in places you don't need it. And I'll tell you what, I mean, the blown-in insulation stuff is great, but if it gets wet, it's a big pain in the butt because you got to scrape it out. There's no way to dry it. And so those super efficient homes that have those really high-end spray foam stuff, if you have a water loss from HVAC or plumbing in the attic, man, it's going to be a big job. Just expect that.
Yeah. And I would say like older homes that have a lot of, they're not as contained as foam.
Yeah.
Homes or newer homes, they're going to have a lot of air leaks and you're going to have moisture coming in through the windows, through the doors, through any crack that the home has.
Right. And that's kind of it's almost good and bad because these older homes that are pier and beam here in San Antonio, they've got your planks you look through the planks and there's dirt underneath. They let a lot of moisture in, but they also breathe, right? Which means there's a natural cycle of humidification and dehumidification that happens. Like today when the weather's great and you got a nice light breeze, it's pulling all sorts of moisture out of that home. Whereas a home that's tightly sealed, water gets in, now it's critical. You've got to get that water out.
No messing around. You cannot mess around with this stuff because
and don't do it yourself. It's not going to work.
Well, you brought up a good point because we run into a lot of people that are DIY with this stuff.
Yeah.
And
I'm a DIY guy.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you go to Google and Amazon and you're like, oh, yeah, I could do this or whatever. And you end up compounding the problem instead of bringing in an expert who knows what they're doing, like us in HVAC or yourself in restoration. Leave it to the experts. It's okay to self-educate and make yourself aware. That's what we want people to do. But we don't want you to put yourself in any danger or make the situation harder for you. Yeah, and I'll give you a perfect example of that. RPM Hill Country is a property management company that we both know. They had a client who had a home. Their client, they're making it ready for the next tenant, and they had some pet odor issues. And so the homeowner, good on him, he's a DIY guy, wants to do it himself, but
He rented a carpet cleaner from Home Depot, brought it in, cleaned the carpets, and the smell got worse. And they didn't understand why. And so RPM called me in to do a consultation. Again, free consultation. I went and tested the humidity in the home. It was off the charts because that home rental DIY carpet cleaner, it cleaned the carpet, but it also left moisture in the carpet pad. And so that moisture, when a pet urinates on a carpet pad, it stays there. It doesn't come out. And so,
despite what any kind of chemical you buy or whatever,
you can clean your carpet, you can't clean your carpet pad. That's the bottom line. And so, with this, through this free in-home consultation, I was able to help the property manager advise his client. We pulled up the carpet, showed all the stains on the back. If a carpet is stained more than 30%, it's got to be replaced. There's really no point spending money on deodorization and pulling. So in that case, the correct sequence is you remove the carpet. This is more than 30% stain. Remove the carpet pad. You have to pull the tack strips out because those are all stained, especially for male dogs that urinate around the corners. And then you have to scrub the slab, because remember, slab is a rigid sponge. It soaked up that urine. You got to scrub that with an enzymatic cleaner, purpose built, and then you have to dry it out. And once that's done, now you can put things back together. There's no way to get that urine smell out of your house without doing the correct steps.
PSA: potty train your animals,
yes,
ladies and gentlemen.
It is worth it. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I know, and not to sound gross or anything, but urine is pretty corrosive.
It is, absolutely. I mean, and it changes chemistry over time as well. And so, same with smoke and nicotine. It gets in everywhere, and people are surprised at some of the measures that we have to take to eliminate those odors.
Well, I know one of the services you do, as unenviable as it may sound, is sewage restoration. Mm-hmm. Okay, your sewage line backs up or something busts.
Yeah.
And, God forbid, water's one thing, moisture's one thing, but something like that, how would you approach something like that?
It's really, the principles are the same. Mm-hmm. The big difference is that with a Cat 1 clean water loss, you can dry things out. If it's a Cat 2 or Cat 3 sewage loss, then you need to remove any materials that have been touched by that contaminated water. It's a biohazard, plain and simple.
There's no saving it.
There's no saving it. You can't wash it. It's got to come out. The only thing if sewage backs up into an area that's finished, all of those materials have to come out. The flooring, the drywall, the insulation, the tack strips, carpet pad, everything's got to come out.
So you're just looking at a shell.
Yes, we bring it down to the studs, mm-hmm. and we have to decontaminate first before we can start drying. So that involves a combination of HEPA vacuuming. If it's mold, if it's sewage, you're talking antimicrobials, and we use pure botanical antimicrobial solution. It's a surfactant that is super environmentally friendly. It comes from essential oil from the thyme plant, HYME, the herb that you cook with. And so it smells actually kind of nice, but it's super effective on all those harmful biomes.
Wow.
And our time's almost up, but
yeah.
I'm always confused with insurance claims and
yeah.
calling somebody to fix it. What's the process when you get to your home and your home's flooded?
Sure. Yeah, you and I talked about this the other day. The first step is to call in an expert. Okay, it's gotten to the point with insurance carriers. Everyone knows the insurance industry is a challenging one for carriers, and so I don't blame them. But they're using every tool available to set your rate, and if they can raise your rate, it's a business. If they can find a way to prove that you're higher risk, they're going to do it. So they've started accounting for anytime you call the carrier and ask them about a loss in your home, that counts as a claim. And they use that data, even if you don't end up making a claim, to put you in a higher risk category. And so your insurance rates at renewal could go up just by calling your carrier. I mean, it's kind of crazy, and people don't know this. So I always encourage, if you have an agent, work with your agent. If you have a specific problem, call an expert. Hopefully you can call someone like us. We get great reviews, and we serve our community, and we don't charge to come out and give a consultation. But call an expert first. Get their advice. It's going to be, hopefully it's free, and it's going to give you information about what to do next.
Well, to kind of summarize as we close for the day, the restoration you do, of course, water, moisture, fire and smoke,
Yep.
very important, sewage, any kind of contamination whatsoever. So for our listeners, would you mind providing your contact information?
Actually, you put me on the spot here. The best way to get in touch with us is go to our website, alldrysatx.com, and all of our contact information is there.
Perfect.
We have people answering the phones 24/7, and we always are happy to talk to anyone, even if they're not an existing customer. We just love helping people.
Realtors would benefit a lot from what you do as well.
100%. We understand what's important to realtors.
And just to wrap it up, before a meeting you were mentioning you're involved in certain organizations. What are some of your passions or things you like to?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm an aviator. That's from the Air Force. I fly out of Bernie Stage Airfield. I have a glider up there, so we do sailplanes. So aviation is one of my big passions, and leadership is the other. I'm heavily involved in the North San Antonio Chamber. They've got outstanding leadership programs, and we support, through the board that I serve on, we support fundraising to give scholarships to those two programs.
Outstanding. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Larry, for coming on here.
It's been great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
You did, and this is an invaluable service for our listeners. Again, alldrysatx.com. Thank you for coming, Larry. And for our listeners, we will see you next time on the Agents Lounge.
You've been listening to the Agents Lounge podcast, brought to you by Airtegrity Comfort Solutions. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or to listen to past episodes, please visit agentsloungepodcast.com.